Okay, are we ready to get this
That's my
thing?
Batman voice.
We are about to
Testing,
dance
1,
right
2,
now with Mr.
testing.
V.
Yep.
Ready to get this party started? Okay, we'll give it a shot. So, welcome everybody to West Coast Weekender. Just want to thank everybody for coming out to this festival and conference. I've been coming to this show since its inception, and I just want to tell you that it's one of my very favorite weekends of the year. So, everybody, when you see Oscar, Jessica, and all the organizers, tell them thank you because they put in a lot of work to this. So, that first. My name is Jim Tremaine. I'm the editor of DJ Times Magazine, which you may have seen out there. And I am co-moderating this panel, Art and House Music as We Know It, with DJ Times Magazine based in New York. And I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves. My right, your left.
My name is Oshun Lade. I run a little label called Yoruba Records since '99, and yeah, I do music.
I'm Oscar P. I run Open Bar Music and Color Recordings, and I'm one of the co-founders of West Coast Weekender.
Hi guys, my name is Eric. I'm from Mexico. I'm the founder of Husu Music. It's a festival and art movement and pretty much everything I want it to be.
I'm Harvard Bass, just local from here. I run Bump City Records, and yeah, pretty much it.
And you guys know me, Mr. V. Hi. How's everyone doing?
Hi, Mr.
Everyone
V.
can put your hands in the air and say hi. Thank you. Perfect. I love the crowd participation. Good morning. I run a label called Soul Channel Music based out of New York, but now I live on the West Coast. Go Rockets. No?
Go
Warriors?
Rockets.
Yes,
Rockets?
yes. Go
Rockets?
Rockets.
Rockets, yes, because I want
they'll be
Kevin
out in
Durant
5.
to go to New York.
Anyway.
But anyway, yes, so I run a label called Soul Channel Music, based out of New York, but now out of San Jose, California. All
So
right.
before we tackle all the big subjects, I want to ask all the artists on the panel very briefly, what was your initial artistic inspiration and what drew you to this music? And I'm going to start with Mr. V over here. What made you want to be a DJ? What attracted?
Honestly, I didn't want to be a DJ until I had a neighborhood friend. I grew up in low-income housing, right? Projects is what we called it back in New York, and everyone had their own thing going on. And there was this one kid named Jesus Cabrero who goes by the name of Lord G. And he used to DJ baby showers and weddings. And my mom never got to buy me DJ equipment, but his mom did because she was a school teacher. So I got to physically see him doing birthday parties and all these other things, and I got to help carry his records and just watch that.
See, kid, mobile DJs.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
start all this stuff.
Yeah. So I kind of got hooked into that, but I to see the art form of it, I didn't really get to see the art form until I got to see Louis Vega at Underground Network at Sound Factory Bar in New York back in '94. And I was doing lights on a Thursday night back then, and I always used to just hang out on Wednesdays because I was just more drawn to, you know, the way he commanded the crowd and how he put together his music. And this was vinyl. This wasn't USB. This was none of that. I mean, he literally, these are when bins were in clubs, and he would literally have, he knew where all the records were. There wasn't no search bar. You know what I mean? It's like he knew exactly where he needed to go.
You'd have to look at the labels back then.
Yes, and it required memory, which a lot of us are losing due to smoking weed and all that stuff. But it required you to know where your stuff was, you know. So watching him work and watching him put things together, I think really got me to firsthand and say, wow, this is far from weddings and baby showers.
Harvard bass?
Yeah.
I started getting into like house music and into music in general just by listening to, just watching my brothers grow up. They were really into, my brother was into rock. My brother got me into house music. He was a pro cyclist at the time, so he was touring around Europe, and he would bring these CDs, and it would just be all house music, and I'm like, what is this? This is the most amazing thing ever. And then I was 16 when he took me to my first club in Tijuana, and that's when it was crazy. Like, the clubs there would only play house music, and it was just like very exclusive. And from there, I just remember looking up and watching like the whole party just happen. I'm like, this is the most amazing thing ever.
So the club experience
The
really
club
turned you out.
experience totally got me into it. And then from there, just listened to the Mark Farina San Francisco Sessions, Volume 1, and it changed my life forever. Like, I was like, I want to DJ. Like, I want to start learning all this. And I got into the whole OM crew down in SF, because back then the internet wasn't really that global, I guess I would say. So whatever I could get my hands on, the white labels that would come in every now and then, and the record store that I would go to, and then all the stuff from San
Yeah,
Francisco.
back then it sort of felt like a secret club in a way.
Yeah, totally.
You know?
Yeah.
Eric, same question to you.
So basically, I'm not a music producer. I've been creating music events for 4 years now in Mexico and Ensenada. So when I created my brand, Who's Who, the best way to position my brand, it was through music. So pretty much what I started became another business, and I became an ambassador of music. But I come from a very similar background as Victor, Harvard bass. Because I grew up in DJ, Ensenada, and I was the groupie kid just crossing the border just to come to the shows. Anyways, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm very thankful with music because of the music I'm at right now.
Chris.
Yeah, I was a music producer first, and that was my introduction to electronic music. I started making hip hop, and then eventually I got into the Global Underground series, and that was sort of my first series that, you know, I had to find out what tracks these were, where I can get them, you know, who had them, and then the conversation just took a life of its own, and eventually I was obsessed, and that's pretty much how I got to where I am today. Like, I always just feel like I have to know that next track or what track this is, and then I'm almost like apply that to my own production and, you know, just try to outdo myself every single time. So now they're intertwined, so that's kind of how I started. And
Please welcome Gene Ferris.
what up, Gene?
The bottom button. We're never on time. So I apologize for that.
There's hip hop time and then there's house music time. We'll get to him in just a second. I'm not a DJ really. I DJ some. My background is I'm just like a music geek. I was always one of those guys who kind of had to know all the music. I have a journalism degree from the University of Georgia. I was in Athens, Georgia in the 80s when all that music was starting up. So, you know, the REMs and the B-52s and all that stuff was sort of like playing in the clubs. More REM and less B-52s when I was in school. So it didn't seem like an odd endeavor to move to New York and be able to write about music. Somehow, all these years later, I'm still doing it, luckily. Oscar, your inspiration.
But keep in mind real quick, right? So, like, Eric is a promoter, right? Who's doing some really cool events that's also in art form. Running a magazine takes skill. That's also an art form. That's why we have so many different aspects to give you different perspectives.
Maybe more of a craft, what I do, than an art.
It's art. It's art. You know. So me, inspiration-wise, the first two guys that had an impact were Larry Levan, which was he was a DJ producer back in the disco era, and he was the first guy that I saw that had an impact on me as far as production and making music. And then the other guy was Tony Humphries, who was on Kiss FM in New York City on Friday night. So it's like every Friday nobody went out. We just stayed home, taped the whole show, went to Vinyl Mania the next day with a cassette. I need all these records, you know. And so those were the first two guys.
Osunlade? Oh, your initial inspiration that
Oh,
got-
my
turned you
initial
into music.
inspiration was just music. I mean, as far as I can remember, that was it for me. I didn't have any other reason to be here. I started playing when I was 7, piano, and yeah, produced a few little hits back in the day, Rico Suave and some shit for Sesame Street, and you know, struggled through the whole LA mainstream, did some stuff for some, you know, major record things, and then just kind of house came after all that, you know. I got kind of shit-faced with the whole music business and learned that that wasn't my way because it was business and not music. So I started Yoruba in '99, and I just moved to New York. And I've been around house all my life because I'm from St. Louis, so Chicago was just there. So it was always around, but I never thought of it as a form of music. But when I moved to New York, like probably around '94 or something, I was hearing this music from like Ron Trent, Louis Vega, you know, Joe Claussell, all these things that were implementing live instrumentation, which is where I'm coming from. I'm working at major labels, and everything was about, we want the new Teddy Riley hit. It was all this
We want more
program.
Rico Suave.
Yeah, you know, they want the same thing. So for me, it was like, wow, you have these guys that are actually putting organic music, and for me being a musician, that was the key for me. So that's what got me into house music.
What got you into music initially? What was the
Just-
first? Do you remember a record where you're like, I got to do that?
No, I just remember. I mean, I used to DJ for my parents at 2 years old when they played cards, and I mean, at 7 I knew that was it for me. My father was a baseball coach, and so of course he was the only son. He wanted to be a sports dude. I was like, nah, dude, I can't. You know, so just from the beginning, it was just music for me. There was no other reason for me to exist this time around except for music. That was just it.
Awesome. Gene, your initial inspiration that got you into music?
Wow.
Deep question, I know, unfair.
See, this is where I sound old as shit. You know, I got a very similar story to all these guys, but I started DJing. I was 10 years old. My father passed away like 2 weeks before my 10th birthday. And my whole neighborhood, like the Chicago South Side back in the day, as all these guys know, like most of all the iconic DJs that you all know, from, you know, Ron Hardy to Little Lewis to even Kanye West, all of us come from the South Side of Chicago, mostly all of us. Same, not too far away from each other, all the same neighborhood. So when I grew up back in the day, like everybody in my neighborhood were DJs. You know, like most of the DJs that I looked up to initially were like people I could still walk up to and talk to when I was young. So, you know, it was just a different time where everybody was kind of playing house and stuff like that. But, you know, my initial thing that just kind of, I guess, inspired me and got me into music, still the person to this day who's still my hero is Little Lewis. Made French Kiss, Blackout. He was my idol. He still is my idol. Everything I do, I emulate trying to be Little Lewis still in the back of my mind, in my head, every track. My look, everything, even though he's like half my size. Everything I do is based around Little Lewis. It always has been. So it's just one of those things that I'm very mindful of now. People who are fans for all the, you know, the stuff that we do, that I try to make sure that I lay a solid foundation or something for you all to actually be inspired of, instead of just being, you know, a renegade, crazy DJ who's just running around and partying, even though we do that too, but do it tastefully, you know. But yeah, definitely was Little Lewis, Ron Hardy. I was one of the few people back in the day that was like, Ron Hardy's better than Frankie Knuckles, screw that. Like, Ron Hardy was my guy. So, you know, I just, those were definitely the guys who like.
Gene, I want to follow up
helped me.
very quickly on Ron Hardy, because I had a conversation a couple of weeks
Sure.
ago with somebody from Chicago, and they had the exact same thing. There was like for those who don't know, Ron Hardy did a party at a club called
Music Box.
Music Box, and Frankie Knuckles was also in Chicago at the same time. Frankie was obviously the godfather of house.
Doing stuff at the warehouse.
At the warehouse, but Ron had a different kind of party. Could you explain the difference between the two DJs and the two parties? And this is in the 80s. Folks.
Well, yeah, well, from what, you know, as much as I know, like, it wasn't like I actually ever had the opportunity to actually go hear these guys, because I'm not that old.
But the tapes were
you
floating
know,
around.
I've heard Frankie, obviously, you know, before he passed away. I had a chance to know him, and I met Ron when I was very young. My sister was a party girl. Like, I'm the youngest of 3. My sister used to go out to all the Music Box shit, like the real music box shit on Lower Wacker Drive. And so I had an opportunity to meet him at a very young age. And like I said, as well as other local DJs. But the difference between Frankie and Ronnie, in a word, from just the tapes that I've heard, and the things that I know of from Legend, Frankie was obviously more technically sound, whereas Ronnie was more of a party DJ. He would be like, I guess if you would look at him, as DJs today, I guess Frankie Knuckles would be like Richie Hawtin, and Ron Hardy would be like,
Felix?
Fisher.
Oh, Fisher.
You know what I mean? Like a party DJ
Now
ready
that's
to
a
go. It's
contrast,
fucking going
yeah.
down, So, both are very good. Don't get me wrong, but as a youth and as a fan of the music as a kid, I was drawn to the party DJ. The lifestyle, I guess, is a lot of people probably drawn to. I was drawn to the lifestyle, but not the gay aspect of it. Nothing's wrong with that, but that just wasn't my cup of tea as youth. But I was drawn to the lifestyle of being a DJ and being a person who presents music to people and making people have a good time. So Ron Hardy was always my guy, when I was growing up, young. But the thing is, once I got older, and Ron was passed away, he had already passed away by this time, and I got a chance to actually meet Frankie and talk to him, I was blown away. Like, the knowledge that this man had on music and how open he was. I'm sure you all met him.
He was the nicest guy in the world.
Such an open person, and so inspiring and so helpful, especially to Chicago guys. Like, obviously what I do was nothing like what he did, but he was still very supportive of our scene, the techno, tech house scene, whatever you want to call it. He was totally supportive of everything that we're doing.
And two very different artists. So I just wanted to point out the difference.
Absolutely.
Because I also think that Ron doesn't get enough credit anymore. It's because there's not that much music that really survives. And
No.
You got to go find it. And
He wasn't known so much as a producer as Frankie was.
As a party guy,
He was
yeah.
a DJ's DJ.
And his edits, too.
He was the DJ's DJ. That's the best way to say it. Like,
So I want to talk a little bit about that path in the road when art and commerce, that question sort of presents itself. And so I'm gonna start again with Gene quickly. When did this become a job for you?
wow.
When did you know that this is what you're gonna do?
When did my mom stop getting mad at me, basically? Oh, man, wow. Well, again, like I have a very, my story is very strange, a little bit different than, I'm sure everyone's is unique. I put out my first record, I was 22 years old on Relief Records, same label you probably see me doing a lot of stuff with now, with Curtis Green Velvet. And I was still going away to school in North Carolina at the time, St. Augustine for college. And I'm out there, I put out my record, just went away to school, kind of thought nothing of it, because, obviously the scene wasn't even a quarter as big as it is now. And they had this very small radio show in North Carolina on the radio that played house music like once a month for 30 minutes or something like that, just during the whole time. And I heard my record on this radio show. And I'm like, shit, this is, 1994, so I'm freaking out. I'm like, shit, I'm about to be like Prince or somebody, like I'm about to kill it right now. And so, I called my mom back then, didn't have a cell phone then, that wasn't even really around, so I picked up the phone, dialed up my mom, called back to Chicago and was like, yo, Mom, my song's on the radio. And she's like, yeah, your sister said she heard it here too in Chicago on the radio. So I'm like, look, this is an opportunity for me. I really want to follow this music shit. And she's like, no, you're going to school. And then, finally we came to a deal where, I'd already been away from school for 2 years. And I was like, just let me get an opportunity to at least try to do this. And if it doesn't work, I'll go back to school, because I was majoring in business, thank God, because it helps so much now. And if it doesn't work out, I'll go back to school. If it works out, then, fuck off. I'm going to go live my dream and try to do what I got to do. And then, My mother's old school, you know, she's 81 years old now, so she's old school black woman. So she finally, you know, was like, okay, cool, give it a try. It worked out. I never went back to school. I went to school for 2 years, that was it. But, you know, I don't recommend that for everybody. You know, like I said, it's a very rare story of shit that actually worked out for once that usually never fucking works out, you know? So, when did I know I was getting paid to be a real DJ?
There
Is
you
the
go.
question. When my mom said it was okay, that's when I kind of knew that,
Listen to your
okay,
mom,
I better
folks.
make this a real fucking job. So, like, right after I put out my first record on Relief Records in '94, in 1998, I started Ferris Wheel. So, I kind of immediately jumped in the boat of, okay, I better start my own record label. I better be my own kind of business person. And it wasn't for you motherfuckers. It was because my mom was gonna kick my ass if I didn't do something, and I was gonna have to go back to school in fucking North Carolina, which I did not
There's
wanna
your
do.
inspiration right there.
So yeah, when mom said it was a real job, that's when it kind of became a real job. I guess once you're getting paid for something, and not, you know, slightly getting paid every once in a while, but something you're getting paid for consistently, that you can feed yourself, you can feed your family off of, I think that's when it's really considered a real job. To you, you know, to the other people who aren't really in this industry, like hell, my sister still doesn't think I have a real job. You know, a lot of people still don't think I'm really working, you know, or doing anything.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. So, you know, to anyone else, they may never actually believe that you're working a real job because you actually love what you're doing. You know, nobody says LeBron James isn't really working or Kanye West, you know, they're working, you know, so.
Yeah, it beats flipping burgers, that's
It
for sure.
beats fucking flipping burgers all the time.
So similar question for Osunlade. I mean, you answered it where you came up and made some hits, and you had a
Yeah.
moment in your career where you really had to make a decision.
Well, mine
in which
was
direction.
immediate because I was working for a major label. So, but what happened for me, which was great when I started my label, was I took all of the lessons of how the music business used to be, and applied that to how I run my label. So my label is a mentorship, you know, it's A&R, it's the whole gamut. It's not just, oh, I got a great song, let me sign me to your label. It's like, no.
Artist development.
Artist development, yeah, and so that, you know, it was immediate. I mean, you know, at 17, I was getting, you know, $30,000 budgets to produce some artists. Like, what the fuck do I do with this money? How do I budget the studio? You know, so all those things I learned from that. So it started pretty much immediately. What changed was when I started my label and had to, you know, divert that energy to running an independent label without the funds that a major label has. And it's forever changing. Today it's the worst that it's ever been. But I've gone through all of the changes from, you know, selling 10,000 copies of vinyl from the first 2 years to now you can't even sell 300, you know, to streaming, to
music.
CDs, to all of the formats that have changed that we have to always follow through to figure out how we're going to survive this shit.
The music sort of promotes the live gigs now,
Well,
whereas
only-
in the old days it was a different story.
Yeah, it was the opposite. Yeah, it was the
live
opposite.
gigs supporting selling music.
Yeah. You gotta go work the music to sell the albums. Now it's the opposite. Like, oh, I want to have a hit. I'm like, well, your hit is only your gig. That's your hit today. So yeah.
Oscar, same question. When did you know you were going to be doing this for life?
I think the first crazy experience I had was I put out my first record in 1988. Yes, I'm 50 years old. And it was on this tiny label in Brooklyn, and the track was called Black Sax. And it was like, you know, a little Chicago-y type track with a saxophone player. That was it, you know, and I think we sold like 20,000 copies the guy sold. So I'm like, I'm fucking rich. I made it. So then I get the royalty statement. Pressing, 5,000. Then I get like the royalty check was like $98. So, you know, that's when I started seeing, okay, I better learn what the fuck is going on here. So, I went to Barnes & Nobles and bought fucking every book I could find on publishing, recording, running a label, legal music law books. Dude, and I just read every day and started learning, getting better. And still learning as I went along. And then I also worked for a bunch of major labels back then with real budgets. So my next big experience was I was working on an album project, Cardiac Records, through distributed by Virgin. So I was working at a company called AMPM Management. We had Brother Makes Three, Noel, Girls Club, like a lot of freestyle acts, Two in a Room. So Two in a Room was a big hit with Wiggle It at the company. So we did a spin-off, Brother Makes Three, you know, hip house stuff, you know? And the first record we put out was actually a huge hit. We were running around Jersey doing 3 shows a night to different clubs. And
yeah, Two in a Room played the very first DJ Expo in Atlantic City in 1990.
So this was like a chain reaction. So that's when I started looking at the business aspect of like, okay, I got to get my shit together and really learn about that. So we put out this one single with Brother Makes Three, and I had a sample. I had sampled Temper, Don't Do Me No Favors. So I sampled that. That was my hook. Yeah, this is a hit. Jelly Bean owned that. So, okay, you got to take the sample out, or you have to pay for the sample. So, all right, let's pay for the sample. What does he want? He wanted 25 cents per each version on the record. There was 4 versions on there. It's $1 a record. And I'm like, I ended up having to take the sample off. But it made me go look into publishing more.
And Jelly Bean gave you an education.
Exactly. He knows. I tell him all the time, you know, you got me on the right track. It's like, so I'm like, I got to figure out why I'm being forced to remove this so I could, and why I would have to pay that. And then I had to go learn about music publishing, real publishing, how it works internationally on radio. Now a lot of that money's made streaming, but not really, you know. So, you know, those were my first like major lumps, like to learn, you know, but I also had to make a decision at one point. I want to be in the music business. I love this shit. I got to figure out a way to make money. So for me, for some reason, I don't know whether I like to host or I don't know what it is, I always gravitate back to events. I don't know why. I've always been good at it, and it's just something that, you know, I throw a party, my friends show up, we drink, we hang out, we play music, and you know, sometimes when you make money, it's good. When you don't, we still don't care. Yeah. So I mean, those were the first lessons that led me to like, man, I got to get my shit together and figure out how to make money, or else I can't do this, you know. And then, last but not least, I've had 5 exes that did not survive, and I'm going to tell you why. The minute they asked me, are you ever going to get a real job? Left them the next day. Fuck out. You know, this is what I want to do. You know?
Chris, same question for you. When did you know music was something that you were going to actually make your life and career?
Yeah, and I also just want to tie into Oscar's, we got to underscore the importance of registering music too, like making sure you're signed up with BMI or ASCAP or something like that, you know, make sure you're getting paid in some
Which is
way.
actually free, actually, to sign up, which you guys, everyone who is in music should do.
Definitely.
You don't have to pay to sign up, it's free.
Yeah, for me, honestly, it was when a booking agent sent me a message on Facebook and then asked for my email and was like, do you have representation? I want to work with you. I believe in you. And that, to me, that was the first moment where I was like, okay, I might actually be able to turn this into work and get paid for what I'm doing. And then subsequently traveling around the world, etc., being booked to play music, that's in a nutshell what really kind of was the very black and white version of when I made it from when I wasn't making it.
So it was people like me.
Yeah.
This is good.
Yeah, and as an artist, you do need that vain validation, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you're in a basement or an attic or a bedroom alone a lot, and you are your own worst critic, and you know, you think half your music sucks pretty much all the time, you know what I'm saying? So
Oh, you're a glass half empty guy?
no, I've become optimistic since I've moved to California, to be honest with you. New York will do that
That's all
to
it
you.
took.
Yeah, no, for real. but yeah, that's really what it was. Like when the booking agent hit me up, and then I started touring, and then a year went by and I'm still touring, and 2 years went by and I'm still getting booked to play gigs. That's kind of when I realized, okay, this could be consistent. I mean, you have to stay on top of it, but you know, it's a grind. I mean, if you love it, keep at it.
Eric, when did you know you wanted to be doing this for a while?
Well, my story is a bit different. Like I said, I started curating events 4 years ago, and back then there was obviously no money, and creativity was basically my best friend. So basically what I did is I just started knocking on doors. Like a mezcal sponsor, and that was pretty much it. So I started calling muralists, musicians, and Doc Martin actually picked up the phone. And I remember the goal was not to make money, but actually it was to make money because I was creating so many jobs for so many people that was my drive. And lucky for me, everything started growing organically. I come from a small town, Ensenada, but it's a beautiful place. And I always knew music had an environment. So I was scouting like the best venues, and I was inviting what I could invite with the budget that I had. But I had so many people from so many different areas participating in one show, because we didn't have LED screens when I started. We had a mural, and we would project on a mural. So basically...
That's dope mural too, I've seen it before.
Thank you. Anyways, that's the motto we just took. And I was just a piece of so many artists and so many art and so many people involved that was the reason I was doing what I was doing. And recently I started working with the wine industry, the beer industry in Mexico. So money for production, money for artists, it just started coming, but everything was very organic. I never saw it as a way to make money. It was pretty much a hobby to position my brand, and it became another business. And today I'm proud to say I've hosted a lot of people. I've hosted Harvard Bass here, Mr. Manic, Doc Martin, and I'm excited for the future, and I'm very happy to be here. But to be honest, creativity was just my best friend. And even though I wasn't a music producer, I wasn't a music festival.
A music curator.
Music curator, I learned how to create experiences. And I learned how to invite people over to make a collaborative effort, and the end result was always something that you could never expect.
Same question for Harvard Bass. When did you know this was going to be your life and career?
It was when I was running mail. I was running mail at a health insurance company. And during that time, I was already releasing records. And they did well, but nothing really came about. And I did a remix for this guy called Benny for a label called Boys Noise Records. Well, I think that was Kitsune, actually. And that label... Boys Noise, y'all. Yeah. And that label, with that record, it just blew up because that's when Boys Noise started playing it. All these artists, the Crookers, all these big artists during that time just started playing it. And there was a high demand for me, and the guy from the label lined up a tour in Europe, and I was still working full-time running mail like every day. And he told me like, look, listen, you're gonna be out there for a month. And I lined it up. I said yes to every gig. I didn't really care. I was just like, yeah, let's do it. And I went to HR or my manager, and I said, listen, I'm gonna take a month off. They're like, you can't take a month off or you're gonna get fired. I'm just like, well, okay, good luck, guys, because you guys could find another mail runner. And
Next.
just did that, and from there, just when I got my passport, I'm like, okay, this is serious now. Like, I'm gonna start this tour. I'm not gonna make that much money, but I'm gonna take it serious and then just go from there. That's how I found out.
Cool. Same question to Mr. V. When did you know you were going to do this?
When I quit a very good job. I'm not even lying. I used to work for a marketing company for 4 years called Foot Cone and Building, and it's a global marketing brand. And I got the job after interning for Masters at Work Records for 5 years. So I took marketing for 4 years, had no clue about it. I was trained and taught without a college degree on how to market things. I've worked with creative directors who worked with ads for Oreos, Hellmann's, like literally Nabisco, anything you can think of health insurance. And I learned how to market, you know, do ads and all that stuff. And I remember I was still in contact with Alex Alvarez, my then partner, who helped me found Soul Channel Music. And on the weekends, we would DJ at this little bar called 85A on Avenue A in New York. And we always took that as a hobby, but it started getting serious for me and turned into a job when I saw Alex working with Arnold Jarvis at MAW Studios. He was an intern. And I would always go to the studio because I used to work there. And on my off time, we used to sneak in the studio. We weren't supposed to do that, but we did it anyway. And I saw him working on an MPC, which is it was a Akai drum machine, an MPC 2000 to be exact. And I just loved what he was creating, and he was creating music on just that one machine. And he would throw Arnold inside the vocal room, and they wrote a song, and literally everything was done in that one machine. And I was hooked. So I just got tired of my job, and I just fell in love with just seeing what was happening. And you know, after a couple of shots and a couple of drinks, you get the courage, the liquid courage is what we call it. And every weekend, doing it every weekend, and then you start getting the production bug. And then the difference with Alex is that I used to hang out at his house. So he was quietly training me while I was seeing. I wasn't physically touching it, but just visually seeing what he was doing was starting to grow in me. And it just kept growing and growing. So I just said, fuck that. You know, I got lazy at my job. I started partying later and later and getting to work later and later. And then I saw what was in my 401k, and it was like $7,000, $8,000. And I was like, okay, this is it. If I'm gonna do something, I think I should do it. I'm already in my mid-20s, late 20s, like I'm late in the game. So I pulled the trigger. I came to work late. I got fired on purpose so I could get my 401k. I took all my money out, went to Guitar Center, picked up a credit card, fucked up my credit, ran it dry with all this equipment.
Words
right?
to live by, folks.
Right? So I know it's kind of crazy, but for me, you know, when you got a calling, you could feel it. Like, you know, and I felt it. And I just caught the bug, and I really wanted to do it, and it's just what I really wanted to do. I don't advise people to do what I did. It's really stupid when you have a company that pays health insurance, you know, cover dental, like all of it. They got a 401k which grows every year, but I pulled the trigger because I loved what I was doing. So I followed my heart. If you could follow your heart and believe in yourself and do it, then do it. But I just went full on ahead. I quit. I put all that money. I bought a Akai MPC, a VS 1880 by Roland, which is a 24 digital track recorder, a small keyboard, a MIDI one, and a Roland VS. It was a XV 2020 that gave me all my keyboard sounds. Those 4 pieces created Just Dance, Something with Jazz and everything, but all that just came out of fooling around every single day after I got fired. As funny as that is. But also, you know, interning for Masters at Work too, and seeing how that business really helped too, in terms of seeing like Oscar and everybody says, like, you know, seeing how the businesses run, the budgets, publishing. You know, I got to see how Kenny and Louie, like they were, I was in a 2-inch tape room, like just fixing their 2-inch tapes and how they went about the business aspects. I saw contracts. I had to run to go to their, to get payroll. You know, I was doing FedEx. I was doing a bunch of things that got me, I guess, built for it. So I guess little by little, the creator was building me into whatever was coming next. So everything just fell into place, and it just felt right. So that's when it got serious. Like once I started getting a paycheck, and we did a distribution deal with Unique. Well, it was a P&D deal, is what we called it over there. It doesn't exist anymore, but like Osunlade said, you know, we were selling almost 8, 9, 10,000, 12,000 records, and then, you know, things just went from there. When I started getting my first check was $1,300, and I was so proud of that. After a 401k $7,000 drop, I get a $1,300 check, but I'm proud of that, you know. So, but it just got things rolling, and then that's when it got serious, and then Louis threw me in the studio, and the rest is history. And then my first big check from Defected, and I was just like, whoa, you know.
Oscar?
And now, mind you, for a lot of us up here, not everybody, but there was no internet back then. Nobody had cell phones. We had beepers, a lot of us. You know, you actually have to pick up the phone. You have to do an actual promo mailing. You know, I had my kids packing records to ship them out to people. You know, my brothers. You have to get on the phone and make phone calls. Did you get my record? Did you play it? Did you listen to it? Like, you have to run around to clubs with acetates, white labels to get DJs to play your stuff. It's you know, that's kind of the
It
world.
was actually a physical hustle.
It was
literally
literally a
a physical hustle. It's not like today where we could just grab our phones and say, hey, I just sent you a WeTransfer. Check it out later.
And there was
you
a
know?
limited amount of vinyl back then too. If you got a piece of vinyl that somebody else didn't have, that was like gold.
And if you didn't fill out your DJ form, you were definitely not getting another fucking vinyl anymore. So now it's not like now if you don't give any feedback, they still send you promos. They really don't care. It's all a front. I just let
It's
you
a
know.
little file.
They'll
No
still
big
give
deal.
you the promo. But back in the day, it's like if you didn't fill out that form, you weren't getting any more free records. That was it.
And there were labels like Strictly Rhythm and, you know,
Oh, yeah.
8-Ball
Defected,
that
even
you
Defected back then.
affected, obviously. Yeah, it was a big deal. Chris?
Yeah, so I had a follow-up question, and this is for anybody here. I think as an artist, over the last couple of years, we've had to sort of curtail the amount we focus on creativity a bit and shift it into other realms, and this obviously also ties into the rise of social media and how that's so integral into like what we have to do and survive. In terms of like your success and what you've seen change over the last couple of years, what's your opinion, perspectives on that?
Was it me?
Or
You,
anybody?
Gene, you're up.
What's
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm
What is the balance between having to get involved in like creativity and like the self-marketing, like social media, that type of stuff? Because as we know, there's a lot of DJs out there who are very big on social media. Maybe they aren't nearly as big in the club.
Did you
They're on
post
social-
today?
Oh my
Gene?
God! Right?
Yeah. What's the balance?
I don't know. Like
I don't even think there is one,
I
to be
don't
honest.
know.
Yeah.
I think social media. Well, at least the way I approach social media, I approach it from two different angles. Okay, I have Gene Ferris, the daddy, as you all know, like his pictures of me, my wife, my kids, my family, and then there's Gene Ferris, the artist. You know, pictures of the clubs and the releases and the flyers and stuff like that. Social media, man, I think, you know, to be honest, a lot of it is obviously smoke screens. But social media from artists, that's for you guys. We doing that for you all, basically for the fans, so you can get somewhat of a piece of seeing somewhat of our life on the road, at the club, with my family, you know, just a normal bit of normalcy in our lives. I think, you know, the problem with social media is when the artists we can tend to forget that that's why we're doing this, is to doing it for you, to give you a piece of our life. Whereas artists kind of get caught up in egos. They start posting things that doesn't have shit to do with you all actually anymore after a while. They just, you know, posting things for different reasons. So you definitely have to find a social media balance, that's for sure. But I think the most important thing, you know, as a father and as a husband, that, you know, you have time for yourself, you have time for your family. You have to do that, you know, because this business, it's like anything else in life. You can get completely caught up in it. You can start believing your own bullshit. You know, just because you got, you know, 1,000 likes on a picture, that don't mean you cute. That means somebody could have just liked your hat, you know, or the record you came out with that week just happened to be fucking awesome. It don't mean you're hot at all. You know, so that's just real. It's real. So you just have to, you know, keep your ego in check, I think, more than anything, as far as social media. And most importantly, let your volume of work speak for itself more than likes on Instagram, you know. I think more importantly, your body of work is the most important thing. Of course, sure, you should promote your releases. You should promote everything you do that you're proud of. Any piece of your art that you're proud of, you should happily promote that. But don't get caught up in it, you know. Realize that, you know, it's just like an art. It's just like a piece of painting. You know, once you're done with that painting, it's gone. You're on painting the next painting already. Just kind of turn the page on that and keep working. That's the most important thing.
But it's also become a bit of a generational thing where, because obviously I have to pay attention to this stuff running a magazine, young fans and young DJs, they grew up doing nothing but social media. That's
Absolutely.
their life. I
Absolutely.
mean, they would be, if they weren't doing music, they'd be doing, like, that guy's got 500,000, like, and I've never heard of this dude.
School, completely fair, you know, so I have nothing but total respect for the young kids. And I learn a lot from you guys just as much as you learn from us on just how to do things and how to navigate my way around in this business. So, yeah, some of these kids, yeah, they do, you know, cheat the game and get a bunch of Russian prostitutes to hit like on their page and get likes from India and all this other shit, sure, whatever. But those are the guys who really, you know, you don't know about them. Like, the people you know about, their fans are legit, they're young, they're fresh, you know, and, you know, it's like I said, it's just like he said, you all grew up in this world of social media, like, in Facebook, like, I mean, we started out, was it Friendster? Was it Friendster? Friendster, MySpace?
The fax
Yeah,
machine.
You know, so
Fax machines.
yeah,
folks.
the game has definitely changed a lot, you know, from you know, obviously when I started, you know, but it's one of those things that most of my fans now, and I'm sure like a lot of you guys who, you know, who's still in the game, most of my fans are half my age. A lot of my fans that are young don't have any idea about the music I made back in the 90s, none. And to me, I think that's kind of what we all need to be focusing on up here, which is staying relevant, staying current. You know, and don't be afraid of these young kids. Don't be mad because, you know,
Their
Fisher
definition of house music
Fisher's
might be
got
different.
5 million followers
Yeah.
or whatever. Don't be mad at that. Like, you know, embrace it. Take it as a challenge. Like, I take it personal. It's like, okay, why does he have 5 million fans? What am I doing wrong? Like, or what can I do to make myself be as relevant in the game as I was, you know, 20 years ago? How can I be relevant today? And that's it. Just keep staying current, keep making the music, and keep your blinders on, and don't really get focused on all the other stuff. you
Similar
know?
question for Osalati. What's the balance?
For me, I try to stay off of it as much. I do like Instagram because
Yeah,
I
can't fight
yeah,
it.
yeah.
it's true.
Well, because I think Instagram's cool because it's kind of like a diary of what's going on. You can't talk to me, and if you do, I don't really need to talk back.
It's the USA Today.
Yeah,
of
I
social
like
media.
that fact. But I think the same thing with Gene was saying. For me, I take it organically. I look at, okay, I have 30,000 followers. How many of those motherfuckers are gonna buy records when I put a new record up? Maybe 10. Maybe 10. So it doesn't equate to anything with the music. I stay in my frame of mind. I always say to people, I make music for when I'm dead, because as a true artist, we were only appreciated when we're not here and we can't give you any more. Your cost of everything that you've created, the value goes up. And I think that is the essence of who we all are. When we're not here, all you will have is our music. When you think about legends that are gone now, all you have is their music. You don't give a shit about how great their life was, the yachts that they were on, the people they were fucking, and how, that's irrelevant to everything. You only know what that song made you feel when you felt it. And for me, that's my focus on everything. It's the music. I don't give a shit about you caring about me, what ice cream I had yesterday, But I think the interesting thing that you were saying as well is it is good to give them or to include your people, because it's also part of your family.
Absolutely.
The people that are really, the people that are really in your corner when you do put that new record out and you're like, hey, here's the link's in bio. And then you see how many of those people that are actually, that's your family.
But it also becomes an artistic decision to not go overboard.
Yeah,
and
no,
have
I
an
mean, I don't think
entire-
it's important for me. I'm not 20 years old, and I'm not trying to, I do like the fact
Well,
that,
you're in a unique situation.
well, I think that's because I strictly stay with music. Everything else is obsolete to me. Yeah, it's just a distraction. And, if I want to stay relevant, I stay relevant to myself. I think that I know what I am and what I want to do. And I mean, it's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. I think I stay away from as much as possible. Like Facebook and all that is just such a distraction. So much hate and You know, you
Oh,
look at the
it's
videos, and
crazy.
it's just like, whoa, this is the world we live in. Like, I'll just make some music and make some nice shit, and you can deal with the
You
rest
don't
of
have
that
to
later.
answer everything on there, yeah.
But I mean, even just seeing it, I think it just distorts the beauty that we can make.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, but again, part of it is the artistry. You have to make a decision on how much do I want to put out there. Do I want to have a team that actually does this stuff? Give you an example. There's a lot of these like European labels, a lot of them in Holland, who have like just full-on teams that do social media all the time. They come up with all these. I mean, I guess I would call them publicity stunts, things to get attention for you that day, so you can sort of dominate the musical news cycle. And, some of it is kind of a bunch of cheap tricks, but it kind of does work. And yeah, it's another way of sales.
Well, from a marketing aspect, I've actually did research on it, and I've found that, everything Osunlade and Gene saying is literally spot on. And a lot of things that are happening today, and what Gene is saying, how Fisher has 5 million followers, is because there's a team behind it. You look at Elro, you look at all the big festivals and everything. There is a huge team, including Defected. I didn't know how many people actually work for them until Simon posted a Christmas picture, and it's 20 people who I only thought it was like 4 or 5, but it's a lot. So it takes a village. We traded actually distributing records where it was only 4 people packing vinyl to now having a staff of 20 to just keep up with the technology. So as much as it's easy for us to post pictures, I do it all by myself, and doing research, I found that between a certain amount of hours, if you post with hashtags, you get more views instead of actually paying for anything. If you do the research, you don't have to pay for it. You can find out when is the best time to post, how many people are going to see it, and what times are more effective that people are on.
It's a game of algorithms.
Yeah, it
folks.
is. It's. I thank God I went to marketing to this company, and to see how these creative directors could get you in just 30 seconds to stare at something, to keep that embedded in your mind, and to make you either buy it or just walk away from it. The biggest sell of getting anything for people to buy it is quickness. Everyone wants quick nowadays. Nobody wants to really
Impulse
see.
buy.
Yes, everything is quick now. Osunlade only needs 60 seconds on Instagram to come up with the perfect snippet to get you to buy into his record. He can't play it from the beginning where it's very musical, but if he gets it at the peak hour where all the music comes out, it's up to you to buy it at that point. 60 seconds. Not a 5-minute record that took you to build everything. You only have 60 seconds to see
get
if
the
you could
attention.
stream it or digitally buy it or get the vinyl. It's just the way it is.
It's
Even
true.
from buying clothes, and all that stuff. Everything is quick.
It's Amazon, folks. It's the Amazonization of our culture.
And actually, the video times now are lower. Like the clips are 7 seconds.
No attention span.
24 seconds, 7 seconds, 10 seconds. It's short. Even a lot of the promo we were running for Weekender, they're shorter. Just straight to the point. We're done. Move on.
And by
Because-
any means, I'm not trying to say you guys don't need it. Social media is a powerful, very, very powerful weapon that everyone should have
And free.
if you're trying to promote your music. I've had veteran guys who we all look up to who just don't want to do it at all, which to me is insane, because we live in an era now where everyone is staring at their phones, and everyone is on their downtime, at jury duty, at home. After the kids go to sleep, even before you go to bed, you're still on your
Yeah,
phone.
good.
So you're constantly doing things. It is a powerful weapon. It's a gift and a curse. And we all know how it can be very time consuming, but if you manage yourself the right way, and if you manage your time on it, it could be very effective. I only try to stay on social media to either make you laugh, point out a record, or a gig I got at certain times. That's it. If I can make you laugh once, it's great, because I know you'll come back, right? I think that's probably everyone's story. They post things that are funny sometimes just to keep you in line, and then they'll post whatever, and then if you like it, cool, and you just keep moving, But it is at a point that Gene, I think, hit it. A lot of it is smoke and mirrors. A lot of it. There are people who genuinely make it and who are doing things, and they don't get that many likes, but they're genuinely doing it and they're making music. But there's a lot of people who are there with the millions of followers, and a lot of it is based on click farms. If you never heard of a click farm, then I would suggest you YouTube it or Google it. And I'll give you a brief description of what it is. It's literally a room probably this big, and imagine 30,000 iPhones all hooked up to this machine that's constantly clicking something and scanning things, metallic fingers and artificial things, and they're just clicking away. That's a click farm. Thousands of phones with fake simulated SIM cards inside. It's real. Yes.
So
I'm not kidding.
I want to ask Chris to answer his own question, which is, what is the sweet spot for an artist between actually doing your art and, you know, diving into the process and all the other stuff you got to do, which may be social media, may be business, may be things that are beyond actually creating?
Yeah, it's like what Mr. B said. It's just a balance. And for me, like, obviously the last couple of years, I've been inundated with sponsored ads, and my Facebook likes have gone down. My SoundCloud plays have gone down. I don't buy followers. Like, I still do everything myself. I don't have PR. I don't have a manager. Not to say that that couldn't necessarily help you. It really just depends what you're trying to do, where you see yourself, what you're willing to jump in on. Like, some people, that's what they want. They want that team of 20 people working behind them with a PR firm and all this stuff and pushing them and pushing them. It's bigger dollars potentially. I mean, you just have to, you know, you have to make a sacrifice. You have to ask yourself what you're comfortable with. For me personally, I wasn't comfortable with any of that. So, you know, I'm getting older, and it's also like, it seems in a way foreign even to me. I mean, I'm in my early 30s, but the game is constantly changing, and you just have to figure out ways to stay on top of it and ask yourself what you're comfortable with and make a decision on what would work best for you in your career.
Right. I mean, everybody wants to, I guess, let the music do the talking, but at some point, you got to find ways to make people listen as well. And so that sort of brings in the other question, which is, when do you go get help? When do you know you're ready for a manager? When do you know you're ready, or if you even want to have a PR person? I'm going to start with Gene.
Well, I'm a firm believer that I believe that everybody needs a fucking team, okay? Especially in this day and age.
What does a team look like?
Well, it depends on what you want, I would imagine. You know, you definitely need someone, I would imagine, to handle your PR. Not just for yourself, but if you have a label, your label as well. Those should be two separate people, I believe. You know, for me, I have an accountant, you know, people who like...
Kind of important.
That's like the most important person on my team, is the person who kind of tells me where my money is going, where I need to put some money, possibly, you know, to so I don't go broke. Definitely need a booking agent, obviously. I believe you need a manager, but everybody's technique is different. You know?
When do you know you're ready for
what
all
works
of
for
those?
Gene may not work for Osun Ladi or for Oscar or anybody else. But, you know, me, I used to do everything on my own. Then I had 2 children. So that's dead now. So I have to have a team at this point, you know, especially if I want to, you know, I don't have ghost producers and shit or ghost writers. Everything that I make is me. So, you know, I have to have time to engineer stuff. I have to have time enough to actually create the music and write the music. If I'm looking for bookings for myself, or trying to manage and put together a tour for myself, or I'm trying to manage Ferris wheel, or what releases, how many, you know, what 4 releases we have that week, or how many demos did I listen to this week from the record label, or and then I have to shop and go to Beatport and get my own shit, and then, you know, go get my own, look at my own promos too, that I got 1,000 promos this week. I mean, anybody who's crazy enough to try to take that on by their fucking self, good luck with that, you know. But
You need an intern.
Yeah, you need an intern. You need somebody who's going to help you out with
Filter
everything.
through the music.
You need help. You know, everyone who we all look up to, you know, because at the end of the day, I don't care who you are. You want to be as big as you possibly can be in this business, no matter what artist you are. If they're telling you anything different, they're either crazy or they're just flat out lying to try to sound humble and cool, and that's a fucking lie. So if you want to get as far as you possibly can in any business, I learned this in college, you definitely need a staff, you need a team. You can't do everything alone. You just can't. You're not physically able to do it. Even if you were up 24 hours a day, 365 days, you're gonna miss something. And also, looking at yourself, being able to look at yourself impartially, that's fucking impossible. Like, no one in this room can look at their self. You may think you're looking at yourself impartially, but you're not. You need someone that's looking at things from a different perspective, that's still in your corner, not a hater, fuck the haters, but someone that's on your team, that's in your corner, that's able to look at you impartially and say, okay, Gene, these are the things you need to do to get to the next level. And when we get to the next level, we'll come up with a whole new list of new shit you need to do to get to the next level.
And you're talking about a manager here, right?
I'm talking
or
about
a booking agent?
Not just necessarily one person at all. I'm talking about maybe your label manager, maybe your personal manager, your booking agent, your artist relations, your social media manager. I mean, these all can't be one person, and it all can't be you. And these are things that if you have a team of people who believe in you, it doesn't cost you anything. A percentage of some money, money that you don't have yet, but if you have no potential of ever making this money on your own, and the only way you can make, $1 million is if you got a team of people, would you take, I made $10,000 all by myself? Or would you take, I made $1 million with a team of people? It's up to, what you want to do. Some people are happy with not having a team to share all that with. I know a lot of people who do things on their own, but most of the people that I know, they're at the level that we're talking about, all of them have a team of people that's helping them do something. All of them, all of us, most of us,
Similar question for Osunlade.
Pretty much the same, but I'd rather say I have a family of people because I don't hire anyone to do anything. I have a booking agent only. I can never be managed, so that's never worked very well for me.
You know yourself.
Yeah, my terms are fuck you. So yeah, I've never had that whole thing, but I got people that are like, whatever you need. I have people that give me advice, and I don't necessarily listen to them that often, but it's, for me, it just strictly stays with the music. It's all about the music. And so me personally, I step out of my own way. I managed to find a few people that help me with label shit that I don't want to do, like label administration, that kind of stuff. But overall, everything is just from my head to my hands, and it is done. But I do delegate. And yeah, like you said, no one man does anything alone.
How do you know when you get somebody that you can trust and work with? How do they pass the Osunlade test to work with you?
Yeah, that's a hard one. Time. Just when you know that person's like, when the day when I don't have to fucking call the distributors to follow up on something that wasn't done right, and luckily I found some people that.
A matter of trust.
Yeah, it's just trust. Yeah. And actually teaching, like we were saying before, the mentoring part, when you teach someone to do what you need them to do, and they manage it, and you're like, okay, I can go over here now and do this.
Similar question for Oscar, because I've known Oscar a long time, and he's had a lot of business partners and a lot of people he's worked with over the years. How do you know when you're cool with somebody to work with? Where does that level of trust come in?
Dude, people proving themselves. People being team players, having tasks, being part of the machine, the family, not just in there to try to further their own agenda. The agenda gets moved by the entire thing. If everybody has a mission, everything moves along. I mean, for me, it's a little different because I've had nothing but horrible experiences with managers and agents and all that. I've been with a few agencies. They don't know how to promote me because am I an event promoter? Am I a producer? Am I a DJ? Am I a graphic artist? Am I whatever? Because I do so many different things. Because I'm involved in a lot of different things. So they look at me, they're like, man, we just don't know how to, But meanwhile, I seem to do okay. I'm as busy as I want to be, I don't like being on the road a lot. I like to do a 2-week tour go do my dates, come back home, be in the studio. Leave for a week, come back, throw my party. I like to keep as busy as I want to be. I moved to California to slow down a bit, and that didn't happen. But
the weather's nice.
But we have a good infrastructure, like the partners and the team and the investors and the crew that we have that does West Coast Weekender. I mean, you guys don't see it, but there's like about 100 partners, promoters, DJs, artists, all putting this thing together, And, the main partners, they look at us like, man, you got, but I'm over here hanging out with y'all. Yep. These guys are putting stages up and doing all this. It's a huge, this is by far the biggest thing I've ever done in my life. If you don't think I'm terrified, out of your fucking mind. Yeah.
Well, I could tell from all the drinks last night.
But we have a good team. We're in communication constantly. Everybody has their departments. Everybody's running their departments. I usually take care of the conference stuff, which and once in a while I'll step into something else. But we have a really good team of people, and I couldn't do this without those guys, without that team.
So I want to move into the notion of being a successful artist and how everybody sort of defines it. I've interviewed DJs and artists for damn near 30 years, and my favorite answer is, when did you consider yourself successful? A lot of folks will say, when I got to quit my day job, when I just made money off of music. So I want to ask everybody on the panel, what is success for you, Mr. V? Yeah, you got to go first. Dive in.
I don't know. I have a different view of that, especially nowadays, to define what success is. It's really a tough answer. I knock on wood that I'm still doing it. I haven't had a job in 15 years, which I'm thankful for, but it's scary, man. You don't know what's happening next. I've been hearing the music news on Spotify being sued, and streaming services offering different plans, and the songwriters want more shares, and the art form is getting more diluted, and it's just being more washed, and the art form is kind of, people are taking, and no one's really giving rights back to a lot of the main artists. So it's a strategic moment for all of us, I believe, each and every one of us, in how we move today, every day. Gene has a way of when he plays his set, his approach is probably different than the way you approach things 10 years ago. Osunlade has more of a different approach when he DJs than back then. It was more, I guess it's still fun for us, but at the same time, we look at it now as, okay, it's get serious mode, because everything that we do is now recorded, viewed, and it's in the public eye 10 times more than it was back then. The existence of cameras on phones has changed everything, from having lights in our faces to having someone call in the club like, yo, where you at, while they're DJing, to just people posting saying how bad your set was, even though your set wasn't bad, but people having their own opinions. Everyone has one. So to define how success is, I don't know. I'm happy, but it is scary still, especially now. There is no comfort. There is no time for me to, enjoy things, really. I can have a good week or two, but it's right back in the business, because if I don't answer my inbox on my third day of a vacation and I go back to my inbox, it's already at 400 something. If that's what you define success, then great. I call that shit stress. Because it's a lot of people wanting things, it's a lot of promos, and I answer all promos. I don't let them go. To be honest, I run through promos like the way I run through Instagram posts. Like I go right to the peak moment to see if it does anything for me, and I'll just write back either, yes, I like it, thank you so much, or sorry, this ain't for me. And I keep it moving. You know, it's a crazy business now. It's not even, it's so fast. Like it's the days of me interning, and I can't even compare the two from when I got into this thing. It is the Fast and the Furious, literally, of how you get into this thing and how I see all these DJs now, these young DJs, people buying controllers and fucking people springing out of festivals and monkeys flying and everyone's got fireballs.
Because it's so much easier to become a DJ and a producer, which we didn't really get into. I didn't really want to go down that technology rabbit hole. But it is. There's so many young, I mean, you see these 16-year-old kids all of a sudden making hit records.
As long as you can keep up with your bills and you have some extra money on the side and you got something going, and that's how I define success. As long as you're out of the balance on your red and your checking account.
What he said.
Yes, that's how I define success. As long as you got some money still, you could be a little late. We're all a little late. But if you can define that success, trust me, man. Again, I come from low-income housing, man. You do with what you have, and a lot of it is just hard work. If you continue doing it and your passion, then honestly, you won't fail, man. Honestly, you won't. And I try to tell this to everybody, man. Define success as whatever makes you comfortable. As long as you're not, behind on your rent and your most important things, then
stay afloat. Harvard Base, same question for you.
That's definitely a factor for sure. That's 100%. I mean, it is for everyone. Music and whatever you're doing, I mean, being successful obviously is, making a form of income to, provide to your family, to everyone, or yourself, whoever you are providing to. But I also think success is when somebody comes to you, a fan, and they say, hey, you changed my life, or you got me through these hard times. You got me through war even. I had people could tell me they were in Afghanistan and their music got them through like these bad times. And like, to me, that's when I'm like, okay, like I'm doing something here. This is making me very happy that I'm actually touching people in the music, with the music. So that, to me, it's also another factor that is.
That's not just success, that's fulfillment.
That's fulfillment, yeah. That's what I define it as.
Same question for Eric.
So for me, sorry about that. So for me, success it's not really related to money or recognition. Well, a little bit recognition, but like Oscar mentioned, I can really relate to what he just said because, like I mentioned before, I invested in a lot of people, in a lot of creativity, and I noticed that I was inspiring people to do things that they didn't even know they could do. And the platform that started as hyping DJs' careers, which is Who's Who, became something bigger. I started using the platform for environmental movements. I started using the platform for an art movement where we were painting parks after a show. We were painting light boxes after a show. So I don't think I want to be an artist. I think what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to be a legend. So by the time that I'm done with this place, they're not going to say, oh, Eric through a bunch of festivals and hyped a lot of DJs. I truly want to use like my platform to something bigger than just an artist.
Awesome. Chris?
Yeah, I would just underscore and co-sign the last three responses tenfold. Like, I agree with all three of them. I also think it's important to diversify as an artist, like Eric was saying, like that for sure is something that I can get behind and I think we should all really think about doing. And then I think the other thing is really just it depends on who the person is, what their definition is for that road. Human beings are sort of strangely wired in that the path to the goal is oftentimes greater than that one particular achievement. So, in other words, that whole struggle, that grind, that path, those connections, the people you meet along the way are always going to be more valuable. And I think that's kind of where we need to focus a little bit more on, especially as an artist. When you get down on yourself, don't focus so much on that one particular result, rather the steps to get there.
For me, it's getting the magazine out every month. Oscar?
Yep.
What was the question again?
How do you define success for you?
Success for me is if I can inspire the next producer, like through my music. Like I love, my music is my first thing. You know, like that's why I consider myself a producer. I'd rather be in the studio 24 hours, die in that motherfucker if I have to. So I love when I'm communicating with people and I'm mentoring younger cats, and you know, they're telling me, hey man, you know, this track, you know, whether it's Time Machine, some of the different tracks. Somebody came up to me at the party yesterday, and they were talking to me about this Time Machine record that I did in 2007. So I love those stories, you know. So in the song, basically, I build a time machine, and I go back in time to all my favorite clubs and visit them again, you know. And that's like one of my most popular records. So he came up to me, he's like, oh man, I was listening to this thing the other day. Dad, I love that record. And I mean, this record came out in 2007, you know. And people are still playing it and listening to, you know, he plays the acapella a lot. So it's like, I like those kind of stories. I mean, that to me, that's successful for me. It's not making the money. It's if I can inspire, you know, that kid's like, yo, man, I got to get into the studio. I've been doing some spoken word stuff. You know, I kind of, you know, that's what I'm looking for.
There's nothing like making music that stands the test of time.
Exactly.
Same question for Osunlade. How do you define success for yourself?
Every day waking up, living on my terms.
Succinct. Gene?
I think that everybody's right. I think, you know, success comes with obviously putting out a good track that everybody loves. Success comes with playing a good party, rocking a good party that everybody had a good time. Hope you all had a good time last night. Success comes with throwing a great festival and getting everybody to come to your party. Success comes with being a great dad. It's all different levels of it, you know, and obviously money's a big part of it too. You know, we all want to make money, and if they telling you they don't want to make money, they're all fucking lying to you. Yeah, they're all
Money's
lying.
good.
They're all lying. They're lying. So I think it's all pieces of the puzzle. It all comes together to build success at that moment. It's always changing. Success is always changing. It's always evolving. It's not one concrete thing that's always that moment of success. Some days you may say, hey, it's not successful that I didn't make that much money as long as I made people feel good. Cool. Another day you may be, yeah, shit, I made a lot of money. That felt successful. It's always evolving. You know, to me, you know, it's just like Mr. V said, you know, I'm from the south side of Chicago, man. I'm from the hood. You know, I'm a little, you know, in this body, there was a little boy that was 10 years old that his dream was to be a DJ and to be a producer and to have people from all over the world listen to what he's doing and like what he's doing. So for me, I'm already in this very successful place in my mind and in my heart. I've already lived my dream. I'm still living my dream. But from a little boy from the ghetto, like, this is already successful for me, you know. Very happy.
That's awesome. Thanks, Gene. So before I open up to questions, I just want to encourage everybody to come to the party tonight. This is going to be, give them a quick rundown, Oscar. I'm into Purple Disco Machine. That's my guy.
After this panel, there's another panel with BPM Supreme. So we've got like Z-Trip and a lot of big names that are going to be on this panel on the hip-hop turntablist side. So that's like right after this.
Z-Trip is awesome. You got to check
And then after that, you know, you hear the music. So they already started prepping. So I mean, outside, you know, Claptone, Purple Disco, Miguel Miggs, you know, it goes on. And then we got Carl Craig later on tonight in the ballroom. I mean, it's going to be a crazy day.
So y'all have fun. Don't overdo it, or overdo it a little bit. So I'm going to open this up to the audience, and I'll play a little Phil Donahue, if anybody remembers who Phil Donahue was. Do you? Really? Okay. Okay, so let's see if I can do this without breaking my neck. Yay. All right. Somebody step over here to the mic. And please tell me who you are, where you're from, and please ask a question and don't give a speech. Thank you.
I'll be quick. Calvin Best, known as Matrix NYC. I'm from New York. I run a label, HOS Music. Quick question. I'm one of those guys who's the jack of all trades, does everything for my label. And I agree with a lot of you guys. You cannot do it by yourself. It's just not possible. My question is, how do you go about putting together that team that you need to, take it, not, I don't want to just say to be successful, but just take it to a level where you feel that you're comfortable at? It's a simple question.
Well, are you dating someone? Are you in a relationship?
Working on that.
Okay, so
That's
you're-
one thing I noticed. Having the right partner with you, that I've noticed is a big.
Well,
big key.
that's going to also be your biggest test as well, because when you get in this thing, it tests everything around you. If you're in a relationship, the biggest test it's going to take is time. And if you have a partner who believes in you, then it shouldn't be an issue. But if you have to be with someone who's going to have confidence in what you're doing, believe in what you're doing, drink with you when you're doing it, hang out with you when you're doing it, getting sober after all of it is over. If you have a person who believes in you like that, then you should be fine. But with all this that we're talking about comes sacrifices. Each and every one of us had sacrifices. They all be lying to you if they didn't tell you that they had to sacrifice something important to get to where they are. Each and every person up here could tell you that. Even some of you guys sacrificed something to get to where you wanted to be. Probably even right here, right now. Some of you probably even quit your jobs just to be here because you believed in something. And, I don't know. I mean,
You have to define what you want, first
Yeah.
of all. So you have to say, well, where am I? Where do I want to go? So there's a lot of questions there.
The
Am
main
I
one,
at a point? Go ahead.
yeah, the main thing is finding someone. If you're looking for a team, for me, the most important thing is finding someone who can know the difference between business and friendship. You very rarely find a person who can really understand that. That at the end of the day, it's a business first. And that's one thing that I learned interning for Masters at Work. And Louis and Kenny told me from day one, when I started interning and they gave me I don't want to say how much money they gave me, but I'll just say that that's the first thing they taught me. This is a business first, and then we can hang out later. But this is strictly a business first. And those guys are where they are right now because that's the mentality that they've been sold. And that's what they sold to me since I was interning for them. And right. But there are people out there that actually do know that. So when you actually know when you talk to someone how they react to some of your requests. And
Yeah, the short answer is you have to define what you want to achieve. So if you're a DJ and a producer, you want to put music out there, right? Okay, so who do you get the music to? You got to get them to the DJs. You got to get them to the A&R people. If you make a particular genre of music, you need to find all those labels that make the shit that you make or similar and step to them. Don't send it to the people who aren't going to put it out. That's just as an example. If you want to be somebody who gets a lot of gigs, you have to have some records. You have to have a backstory. You have to have something that makes you bookable. A booking agent isn't going to take some guy who's great just because he's great. He's going to take somebody he thinks he can book. All right? That's another thing. A publicist. You have to have a story to tell before you hire a publicist. And I trust me, I know this. I'm around publicists all the time. And I get pitched things that make no sense. And what happens is they hire these artists, these young up-and-comers sometimes, they hire somebody before they have a story to actually tell. Just because you have this one record and just because you have, one little thing, it doesn't mean I'm going to write a big story about you, as an example. A blog might, but you have to define your terms. You have to have realistic expectations when you bring these people on. And when you find them, they're all different types of talents. The internet ninjas, I mean, listen, you could probably find a badass 21-year-old who can get your name out there on social media, but you got to want to do that. So you have to define everything that you want, first of all. Anybody else?
My
Anything
advice,
to add?
the approach I took when I needed people, I launched an internship. And there's so many kids out there that just want to be part of something.
Hungry.
They want to be, there's a lot of people
And,
who just want to be around this music, and sometimes it becomes their life, and sometimes they're like, it's not for me.
And whether it's a label manager, a graphic designer, what you're looking for, honestly, if you treat them as family and you communication is key with these people that you have behind you, and you make them feel like part of the project, beautiful things are going to happen.
It's true. I mean, I think pretty much everybody on this panel can probably say they had a mentor at some point or somebody that they learned a great deal from. I mean, I did in the journalism game, but also being around artists is also very inspiring. And again, I'm speaking as a publication and not a DJ artist. Sometimes you forget why you do this stuff. And when I go to this event, when I go to Amsterdam Dance, you know, when I go to other shows, Movement in Detroit, for example, I always have that moment where like, oh yeah, this is why I do this. It isn't just me sitting in front of my laptop, you know, in my underwear, you know, like cranking out reviews. I actually love this stuff. And sometimes you got to remind yourself that this is why I do it.
And remember, sometimes you don't really need a whole group. I mean, Osunlade is still successful, and he has this one person that he just likes to, you know, do all his dealings, and then the rest is him internally. You can have that one person too that can just look out for your best interest, and that's all you basically need.
Yeah, like Josh Winks as Matt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Josh. For people that don't know, Matthew Brookman runs Ovum Recordings, and he's basically been Josh Wink's right-hand man for 30 years or something like that.
I mean, Kerry Chandler, yeah, he has like one agent that he's been with for 30 years, and look at where Kerry is. You know, it just goes to show that if you have someone who's going to ride with you and believe in what you're doing, you'll know. You'll know.
Another question, yes.
This is music and art. Where do each of you draw the line between I'm a professional and maybe I have to do a remix? It's not my style, but I've been hired. And my nature is this, and this is my art, and I will not compromise it. Where?
Osu, I think that's more. You could please answer that. That question is made right for you, man. Please. No, you don't want to answer it? Come on, answer it, bro.
That's exactly what this panel is about, right? So, what is art? This to me is art. This whole conference is art. Making music is art. Like, true story. This is the first job I ever had in the music business, was at this magazine.
Oscar used to write reviews.
Now I have a conference, and he's moderating my old boss is moderating my panels. It's crazy, But it's art. It's an instinctual thing. When I'm in the studio making music, I tend to go with whatever my instincts tell me. That's what I'm going for. I'm trying to make art that I'm going to share. Not sell. I'm not thinking of it from a selling point of view. I'm thinking about sharing it. If it makes money, great. If it doesn't, whatever. Money's great. Not gonna lie. But that's how I approach it in the studio when I'm making music. I want this to be an art piece. Usually your first instincts when you're creating something is always the first and correct one. If you go against your instinct and your guts, your art gets fucked,
I think you're asking, where do you draw the line, creating with others, for others?
We don't. I don't. There's no, if somebody...
I think if you can live with yourself and wake up with yourself in the morning and go, okay, this is part of what I do, and I got paid, then it's okay. Me, I'm not that person. But if you can, and sometimes I've taken jobs. I've taken a remix, and I'm like, oh, fuck. I hate that shit. I never want to hear that again. And that's the thing. You have to wake up and go, wow, I'll never do that again. Or maybe I will. Does the dollar matter more than, And so for me, it's just not worth it, because I have to, that will outlive me. The music will outlive me. So I can't leave something that I know that my spirit will not be okay with. So I think that's just a personal thing.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. For me, there have been plenty of times where I've had remix offers and the track was really cool, and I jumped in on it. I didn't care what the fee was per se. A couple of times it's been pro bono, just for a homie, whatever. Other times I've been happy to be paid to remix something so beautiful already. That's real talk. But I've also been in situations where the offer was so high from a big label or something like that, and I was just like, I'm not going to turn this down because I need that money, or I could use that extra money. So I've been in both situations, and I think, or for visibility, or just that you just need that check. I've been in all of those situations.
And if you go back to the 90s and the late 80s, there were certain remixers, guys like David Morales. How many remixes did he do? Hundreds?
I mean, everything. You could look at the Mariah Carey remixes and
Yeah,
everything.
So I mean, I'm not going to speak for David, but I'm sure that there were some records that he was just not feeling. But he had a sound, he had a style. People wanted to hire that sound in that style, the Red Zone remix, and it was everywhere. So he obviously could sleep at night, and he did pretty well. So.
But in the end, he stood for something. So you have to be able to stand for something. What do you want to stand for? That's going to be your message. That's what fans gravitate to. If there's a certain thing that you do, or a message you stand for, people gravitate to that. People that buy your music, people that go to your parties, people that go listen to you play records. It's a big aspect.
Do we have another question? Come on, y'all. We don't want to have to tap dance. No?
Okay.
No questions at all? Nobody?
By the way, I brought souvenirs for anybody who got a question for me, too.
Okay, here we go.
I know I'm not Harvard Bass or Mr. B, but I got gifts for you guys.
So I'm just barely now dipping into the realm of starting a record label. Could you recommend any resources or books or websites or something where I can get some knowledge on where to start, what kind of like contracts, I'm like going to this thing green and I want to learn it all as fast as possible.
I would tell you, go to barnesandnobles.com and look for books on running a record label, music publishing. There's thousands of books out with the basic knowledge to get you on the right path. But it's all going to be based on experiences, because each experience you have along the way prepares you for the next thing. But it starts with that. There's tons of books you can read. And if you can find somebody to mentor you that's already where you want to get to, that's also great. Having somebody that can advise you as you go along.
Does anyone need an intern? I'm right here.
I mean, a lot of us do mentor a lot of people. We can
Harvard
talk.
wants an intern.
Yo, I need an intern.
Harvard needs an intern.
And I would say you don't have to physically go to Barnes and Noble. You do know that, right? If you can go download that shit, look at it on the couch.
There are a lot of books out there. I think everyone should follow this website, which I get emails from every day, and it basically underscores music technology and music business. And I love to read this every day, and I find it very inspirational. It's called hypebot.com. And they speak from everything from music syncing to crowdfunding with music and so on and so forth. And I read about this every day. They teach you how to optimize your Instagram page and teach you techniques that are absolutely for free. Again, it's called hypebot.com. And it's a good read. And every day they put up articles from what's going on in the music business to what's coming in the music business. Algorithms from what's how you can promote your music on anywhere from Facebook to Bands in Town. They give you the latest on what's the so-called hottest new app that all the big musicians are using. So these type of resources, you should always have time to at least take 5 minutes to read and 5 minutes just to look at. Again, Oscar said it right. There are books out there. There's also YouTube. You can sometimes YouTube. They have the master classes with a lot of people who used to.
Side of
right.
things, yeah.
There's a lot of things too. I think the most important thing that I learned when I first got into this, and I thank Alex Alvarez, was learning publishing and just learning royalties. I think that's the two most important things. And I'll say that because when I was coming up, I took a visit to Osunlade's house when he used to live in New York. And I remember Alex was, and this was Osunlade, was just dropping bomb after bomb after bomb of just quality music, and just, he was just first coming out. And I remember we were first coming out, and I had no clue really about the business and everything. And I remember Alex just kept telling me, you have to learn about publishing. You have to learn about royalty rates, what works and what works for you, syncing, mechanicals, all these different things. And I thank God that I had somebody who pressed me on that first before I even jumped into anything. That was the most important thing to do. And thank God I learned that, because there's deals that come to you that you kind of want to know yourself, even though you pass it to your manager. You want to have that knowledge that you're both looking at the contract, not just one person. You want to understand terms. You want to understand syncing and all these other things. And later in life, when you start dealing, let's just say you make a record and Jeep Grand Cherokee signs one of your house records for a commercial, you know what syncing is, television rights. When PlayStation came to me and they picked up Just Dance for Gran Turismo Sport, I was a deer in headlights to getting a 30-page contract for a video game and syncing and licensing and what I'm getting in the next 30, 40, 50, 60 years. So it takes a lot. I think that's the most important aspect. And the first book you should get is publishing, syncing, mechanicals, royalty rates. Learning all that stuff first is so important.
It's also very important to understand that all the rules change very quickly, and it evolves dramatically. We're not going to go down the rabbit hole of streaming and all the little bits of music, little bits of money you get from it. But you got to also understand that there's a political element to it as well. That's another topic for another seminar. But that's why websites and forums and things in real time are very important to keep up with, because the rules can change on the fly. And the music industry just evolves all the way, and it is never in the favor of the artist. Understand that. So I'm going to wrap this up. I want to also say, please stick around for BPM Supreme's presentation with Z-Trip, who's one of the greatest DJs in the world. Yes, Zach, you are. And thank you for supporting West Coast Weekender. We will see you at the party tonight. Thanks.
Thank you.
Stickers.